and relatives of Martin Luther King Jr. today at the White House. It's to mark the 60th anniversary of King's historic March on Washington, where he delivered his I Have a Dream speech. The president will give remarks to commemorate the anniversary. And that's the latest. I'm Mike Moore from your 24/7 news source, the Black Information Network and BINnews.com.
Busy driving West Covina on that 10 West at Azusa Avenue. Two left lanes with a crash here. Downey had troubles on the 105 East 105 at Lakewood Boulevard. That's now clear to the right side. And Linwood, the 105 East at Long Beach Boulevard. Earlier wreck onto the shoulder. Headed west on the 105. La Cienega Aviation towards the airport. Looks like they've issued a signaler here. A crash with a big rig. Two right lanes are blocked. South LA trying to clear a Concord vehicle on the 110 North at Adams Boulevard. That's now made it to the right shoulder. Long Beach, some delays on the 405 South. South 405 approaching the 710. Crash has made it to the right side, but we're busy here from at least Wilmington.
Labor Day savings start now at Lowe's. Save on select 3-quart mums. Right now, just 2 for $12. Lowe's knows savings. Lowe's knows home improvement. Valid through 8/30 in-store only. Actual plant size and selection varies by location. Excludes Alaska and Hawaii.
This is the KBLA Sports Minute with Ray Richardson.
I'm a bad man.
Simone Biles looks like she's ready for the Paris Olympics in 2024 right now. The African-American gymnastics superstar won the U.S. Nationals all-around competition Sunday in San Jose. At age 26, Biles is the oldest woman to win the U.S. Nationals. The four-time Olympic gold medalist is making a comeback after taking 3 years off since the Tokyo Olympics in 2021. The Dodgers capped a 4-2 road trip with a win at Boston Sunday. Congratulations to the Little Leaguers from El Segundo. They beat Curacao for the Little League World Series championship. Louis Lappy hit a walk-off homer in the bottom of the sixth to win it for El Segundo. First Little League title for a team from LA County since a team from Long Beach won it in 1993. No debates, no speculation, just the info you need. That's your KBLA Sports Minute. I'm Ray Richardson. More news, opinions, and conversation when we come forward on KBLA Talk 1580.
KBLA Talk 1580 is dedicated to empowering our communities by providing progressive talk radio for our audience. We strive to be an intersectional voice for the voiceless. As a Black-owned and operated station, we are committed to highlighting diverse perspectives and creating safe spaces for meaningful dialogue. We believe that everyone has something unique to bring to these political, economic, social, and cultural conversations, and we don't shy away from the hard conversations about current events. We endeavor to be a beacon of hope and understanding, while boldly challenging listeners to think more deeply about difficult topics that impact us all. With this in mind, our mission statement at KBLA Talk 1580 is simple: to create an inclusive platform that promotes civil discourse through honest dialogue and encourages personal growth among our listeners, so they can become the active agents of change. Our vision is to establish ourselves as the premier radio network with relevant programming across the beloved community, connecting people through shared experiences and collective power for lasting impact beyond these challenging times.
This is Tavis Smiley. Glad to have you tuned in as we celebrate the 60th anniversary of the March on Washington, all 3 hours of our program today. Over the weekend, I was in Mississippi with Dr. Cornel West for the state's annual Emmett Till Anniversary Celebration Weekend. Dr. West and I sat for a conversation that I want to share with you right now. Dr. West, a blessing as always to see you, my friend. How are you?
Brother, what a sublime day we have had here in Mississippi, and for you to come from L.A. to come back to your native state and spend it together with me and my beloved wife Anahita and all of the wonderful folk here in Mississippi has really been sublime, man.
It's been an amazing day, and I didn't even know what exactly to expect when you invited me to join you here. I knew we'd have a good time, as we always do.
Absolutely.
I didn't know what to expect in terms of the agenda, but it turns out that this is an annual day, an annual weekend in this great state of Mississippi. As you mentioned, the state of my birth, M-I, cricket letter I, cricket letter I, humpback I, Mississippi, the state of my birth. This is their annual Emmett Till Anniversary Weekend. So I want to start with this. Here we are in Mississippi, Gut Bucket, Mississippi. On an Emmett Till Anniversary Weekend, and today, Monday, the 60th anniversary of the March on Washington. Can you juxtapose those two things for me? Because Emmett Till, clearly the murder of Emmett Till is one of the catalysts for the movement as we know it. And obviously the crescendo would be, for many, the March on Washington. So juxtapose those two things for me if you can.
Well, one, there is no March on Washington. There is no escalation of the Black Freedom Movement in the 60s without what happened in August of 1955 when Emmett Till was viciously killed by cowardly white supremacist terrorists. That was his body brought back to Chicago when Mamie, the great Mamie Till, with her father for the trial, brought his body back to Robert Temple's Church of God in Christ in Chicago, kept that casket open. John Johnson took a picture of it. The whole nation, the world, especially Black America, could see it. And then the great Theodore Roosevelt Mason Howard, one of the great freedom fighters in Mississippi, went on a lecture tour. He went to Dexter Avenue Baptist Church November 27, 1955. Martin Luther King Jr. introduced him, Rosa Parks sitting on the front row, and 4 days later she decides to sit down on a bus in order to stand up for justice with what? Emmett on my mind, Emmett on my mind. Emmett Till was on my mind. So you're absolutely right. It was a catalyst, and in some ways it was a causal agent. And what we have experienced here, the museum last night, watching the movie, the rich dialogue with the brothers and sisters from Mississippi, and then in Lexington this morning, and then Rankin County zeroing in on our precious brothers Jenkins, Michael Jenkins, with his really magnificent mother Mary, as you saw. I was blessed to sit next to her. I was humbled to sit next to her in all of her dignity and nobility, but also Eddie Parker and so many others. And I salute Brother Malik Shabazz and Trenton Walker and my dear brother Coach Andrew Campbell and Brother Kareem Mohammed. I mean, all of them have come together here to try to turn things around. And I believe, as you know, Mississippi is ground zero for the Black freedom struggle. We know it musically in terms of the birth of the blues. The blues is the greatest artistic breakthrough of the 20th century with artistic creativity, spiritual fortitude, and moral courage unprecedented in the history of this country. And then politically, with the death of Emmett Till and the movement of Fannie Lou Hamer and Medgar Evers and Murray Evers and Amzie Morris, just so many magnificent freedom fighters coming out of Mississippi. And keep in mind, Tavis, in 1860, Mississippi was the wealthiest state of the Union. Isn't that something?
I mean, that is an interesting juxtaposition, because in many ways now it is one of the poorest states in the Union. How do you read that dichotomy? The wealthiest state then and one of the poorest states now.
The constant is the suffering of Black people and the exploitation of Black labor and laborers. It was Black people's work on that cotton that made Mississippi the wealthiest city in 1860. And the very fact that not just the number of Black people, which is high, but of course South Carolina was near Mississippi in terms of percentage of Black people in the state, but it was the fact that Black folk waking up was such a deep threat to that wealth and that power. And that's why the violence has been so intense. I mean, one could argue that Black folk have caught more hell and high water in Mississippi than any other state of the Union. And yet at the same time, Black people have never allowed that kind of violence, catastrophe, and oppression to have the last word. That's where you get the B.B. Kings, the Howlin' Wolves, and the Muddy Waters, and Hal Beanie Jones, and Reverend C.L. Franklin, and Sam Cooke from Clarksdale, and David Ruffin from Wynot, Mississippi. We can go on and on and on.
And Tavis Smiley from Gulfport.
And Tavis Smiley from Gulfport, and Albert Roberto from East St. Louis. Oh, we can go on and on. Eddie Glaude from, Brother Eddie's from,
where's he from?
Something Point.
Moss Point.
Moss Point.
Yeah.
Brother Eddie, sorry about that, bro. You
That's
was just
right,
having
Moss Point.
yeah, Moss Point, absolutely.
I got 90 seconds here, and we'll continue on the other side. But let me just ask you right quick to say another word about that connection between Rosa Parks and Emmett Till. And I raise it because I don't know that people always connect the dots, the continuum of black struggle. But you made a powerful point. Emmett Till's on her mind.
Oh, absolutely. But it's very much like the slave insurrections when they used to kill the little black babies, and they'd have the funeral for the babies, and they tended to be the catalyst for the slave insurrection when black folks said, this is enough. We can't take any more of this. This white supremacy is so sick and pathological and obscene that we have to respond. It's cowardly. We have to respond. That's what happened with Emmett. Yeah. People start straightening their backs up. Well, this is what is happening right now in Mississippi with Brother Jenkins and Brother Parker and a whole host of others. People are beginning to straighten their backs up. And I'm telling you, Brother Martin used to say, anytime folks straighten their backs up, they're going somewhere, because folk can't ride your back unless it's bent.
You're listening to Tavis Smiley. We are in Mississippi as we speak for this conversation. Dr. Cornel West, the candidate for the Green Party nomination for president, is our guest in this hour. More with him when we come forward on Tavis Smiley.
Unapologetically progressive. Unapologetically black. You're tapped into Tavis Smiley.
Escalade IQ. This the intro to the all-electric Cadillac, perfection like Zoom. And on a full charge, you get 450 miles without the stop. Haiku. This is what I do. Daddy fat intellect since 92. Linked all the way back, panoramic roof. Come with 24-inch rim standard. Ooh, why? Shawty don't kill him. Cadillac diamond in the back, cold chillin'. And when I'm on attack, on the track is no ceiling. Sky's the limit. You hear me? Straight drop, no parachutes. Lay lines like a longitude and latitude. Deal it, beloved, clearly we're hustling. Bussin', truckin'. Cadillac.
For more on the Escalade IQ, visit Cadillac.com.
Available late 2024. GM estimate 450 mile range. On a full charge based on development testing and/or analytical projection. Consistent with SCHA 1634 revision 2017 MCT. Range subject to change prior to production. Annual rates may vary based on service factors, including ambience temperature, terrain, battery age, and condition loading, and how you use and maintain your vehicle.
Hi, it's Tavis Smiley. KBLA Talk 1580 is inviting you to join us on Saturday, September 16th, 10 a.m. to 12:30 p.m. for our very first economic empowerment event for the community. This event is free and it's powered by Caltrans. We're doing this in association with Rambo House, and here's Rambo to tell you more.
Contracts. I'm going to say it again for all of us small business owners out there. Contracts. Rambo House, KBLA, Tavis, me. Oh my God, this is going to be massive. I truly thank Caltrans for giving us the opportunity to focus on contracts. Listen, that's what it's all about to be a small business in LA. That's how we hire our own. That's how we expand our community is contracts. KBLA1580.com is for you to have a seat at our contracts-focused event. Contract Ready does it again. We had over 900 last time. So you guys know how exciting this is. And if you just think that you want to get into contracts and you're close to it, bring your friends out for September 16th at the Marriott Hotel. Listen, you know where to register. KBLA1580.com. Come see me. I can't wait to see you. Let's do it, Tavis.
So be sure to go to KBLA1580.com for all the details. We'll see you Saturday, September 16th.
Dominique DePrima for KBLA Talk 1580. Are you worried about your credit score? Well, look, you can rebuild it. There are lots of factors that go into determining your credit score, but one of the most effective ways to improve your score is to consistently pay your bills on time, over time. If you're forgetful about payments like me, try automating your bill payments. That way all your creditors get paid on time and you'll have freed yourself of trying to remember. Whatever your financial goals, U.S. Bank Access Commitment Initiatives can help support you in reaching them. Access your financial goals at usbank.com/access. Member FDIC, Equal Housing Lender.
He's rooting for everybody black. More of Tavis Smiley coming your way right now.
You're listening to Tavis Smiley, and I'm glad about it, particularly given that today is the 60th anniversary of the March on Washington. So I'm saying today, but this conversation is actually being recorded on the weekend in Mississippi, the state of my birth. And as Dr. West, our guest in this hour, in case you've just tuned in, Cornel West, presidential candidate for the Green Party nomination, is our guest. He and I are together this weekend in Mississippi on the Emmett Till anniversary weekend in the state of Mississippi, which means that there are all kinds of activities going on in the state of Mississippi this weekend to commemorate the life and legacy, a short life, but an impactful life to be sure, the life and legacy of one Emmett Till. And the persons organizing these various events in the state of Mississippi were kind enough to invite Dr. West to be a keynoter at a number of events happening around the state over the weekend. And Dr. West called me and invited me to come down. Of course, I'm always happy to come back to my home state of Mississippi. And so we've been together for a couple of days just moving around the state in the Delta, specifically trying to raise some critical issues at this moment. You said a number of times on the trip, Dr. West, that Mississippi these days is ground zero in the black struggle for freedom. What do you mean by that?
Well, one, I would say Mississippi in many ways has always been. That doesn't mean that North Carolina, Coltrane State, or South Carolina, Dizzy Gillespie State, or Florida or Georgia, but we have basically been a Southern people. You know, I'm from Louisiana, Huey Newton from Louisiana, you from Mississippi, you know what I mean? 95% of us was from the South, given just 100 and some years. But Mississippi was ground zero, and of course Chicago becomes Mississippi North. And Chicago has levels of creativity and courage that we still don't have languages for. In jazz and blues as well as churches and so on. And so in that sense, when you think about the black freedom struggle, it's first primarily a Southern affair. It's primarily under vicious forms of American apartheid, atrocious forms of American terrorism, Jim Crow, and lynching. And you remember when Martin goes to Washington, D.C., you know, the first thing he says in his speech is, we have come from somewhere.
That's right.
We come from Mississippi. We come from Georgia. We come from Alabama. We come from the South. So he's acknowledging that's the context of black love, black joy, black freedom in the face of vicious white supremacist attack and assault, but also predatory capitalists, because it's about the fusion of hatred and greed. They go hand in hand. And that's why in Washington with Martin King and A. Philip Randolph and others, they talk about freedom and jobs. It's always a matter of keeping in place the economic dimension of the struggle for freedom. But as we know in Mississippi, when you talk about the blues, or when you talk about Reverend C.L. Franklin, who's the father of a genius named Aretha, but he was a genius himself, there's a spiritual freedom. There's an artistic freedom. There's a stylistic freedom that black people have always enacted as we acknowledge that economic freedom and self-determination in the economic sphere is and political sphere is very important.
We just had a conversation on this program last week. There's a report that comes out every so often called the Disparity Report, essentially. And this report tracks, thanks to these wonderful black think tanks, a couple of them in the D.C. area, nation's capital, that track black income inequality. I'm thinking about this as you talk now because we were discussing earlier the fact that in the 1800s at one point, Mississippi was the wealthiest state in the Union.
Isn't that something?
In many respects now the poorest state in the Union. And this disparity report, as our listeners who heard this last week, if you missed it, by the way, check out our podcast. You have got to hear this conversation that we had last week with Diedrich Asante Muhammad. Diedrich Asante Muhammad on this program last week, breaking down this new report, this new research study about black income inequality. And here's the takeaway. I want to get your take on it since we're in Mississippi right now talking about these issues of economy and economies of scale. So the new data suggests it's going to take 780 years, at the pace we're moving now, 780 years for black income to reach parity with white income. At the pace we're moving now, 780 years. It's going to take 500, if my recollection is correct, 561 years for black wealth to reach parity with white wealth in this country. We're going to talk a bit later about your campaign, but this is one of those campaign questions that I suspect you're going to get asked and certainly should get asked. And so I'm going to be one of the first to ask it now. When you hear data like that about the economic condition of black folk, that we still lag far behind in every single leading economic indicator category, you say what?
Well, I say, my dear brother, you know, when you move from ugly police brutality, when you look at the shattering of poor communities and black communities when it comes to shattered families, churches no longer as strong as they used to, and many of them tied much more to market religion rather than the religion of Jesus from Nazareth. When you look at the very low quality of too many of our black leaders who are willing to engage in making it rather than really keeping the faith with the people, those 785 years or 500 and some years, you know, you say to yourself, if we don't come to terms with it in the next generation or two, things are going to snap. That's what the fascist movement is all about.
And when you say snap, you mean by that what exactly? I'm not naive. What do you mean by snap?
No, by snap, what I mean is very much like after 1877 in the 19th century, a return to vast white supremacist control, a return to a foreign policy that invades and occupies nations anytime they want to, a return to vicious attacks on the trade union movement to make sure that greedy bosses are able to gain access to profits without any pressure from workers, ugly attacks on women, be it productive rights or be it women just gaining access to high levels of success. All of the things we associated with the worst of America, pushing back the best of America. And see, when I think of the best of America, it's not just Martin King and Rabbi Heschel and Edward Said and Dorothy Day and others, but I think back of my pastor, Reverend Willie P. Cook, Brookhaven, Mississippi, baptized me 62 years ago.
In Shiloh Baptist Church?
In Shiloh Baptist Church. But he was a courageous leader, that his prison ministry was stronger than his building fund, that he was not a CEO of a profit-making enterprise. He was a pastor of a church who loved the people. We saw this with Brother Ava Harvey today at Progress Rest Missionary Baptist Church there in Brandon. You see, that's greatness for me. He or she is greatest among you, will be your servant, will be willing to sacrifice, live, and die for the least of these, those mass incarcerated, those in ghettos and hoods and reservations and any poor community, even working class community, and anybody who they are. Vicious attacks on trans, sick, ugly perceptions of gay brothers and lesbian sisters. For me, spiritually sick. Where's the love? Where is the love? That is the challenge that we have. But that's what Martin understood with the March on Washington too. He knew that if somehow we didn't expand and make it possible to break the back of American apartheid, we were going to have another civil war. And it could be we headed toward another civil war.
You said a few things I want to interrogate right quick. I asked this question of others, one or two others on this program last week, as I recall, but I want to ask it now of Cornel West. If you look at the march 60 years ago through the lens of public policy that came forward, it's hard to argue that it wasn't successful.
Right.
You got the Civil Rights Act, you got the Voting Rights Act, Voting Rights Act 64, 65, major housing legislation 68. So in terms of seminal legislation, it's hard to argue that it was not successful, it was not impactful. But as you know, the official title was the March on Washington for Jobs and Freedom.
That's exactly. Jobs and freedom. Freedom and jobs go hand in hand.
They do indeed. So talk to me about that, because one looks at that data that I just offered you a moment ago about how we still lag far behind in every single leading economic indicator category and raises a question, how successful was the march really?
Yeah, it's a wonderful
question. And I don't mean to demean it, I'm just asking your take on it.
It's a wonderful question. And in some ways we go back to Malcolm X. You know, Malcolm said that it was a picnic because the Kennedy administration had to read every speech, that John Lewis had to change his speech. James Baldwin couldn't give any speech. So there was still white oversee.
And no women.
And no women.
Yeah.
You know what Mahalia Jackson
Hell, you're saying, yeah, of course. Yeah.
Mahalia's deeper than most of those
who were speaking.
brothers and males up there. I mean, let's just be honest about it. We won't
yes.
get into all of that right now.
I got you.
And you remember, she's the one telling him, tell him about the dream, Martin. Tell him about the dream. She hadn't raised that question. Martin would have ended, but we won't get into all of it right now.
Right.
But the point is this, that the Kennedy administration did have some control over the march, and they wanted to confine it to political legislation and didn't want to hit the economic issues that Bayard Rustin and A. Philip Randolph and Martin King and the others were also pressing. Full unemployment, increase of minimum wage. We still dealing with that right now. Grotesque wealth inequality. We still dealing with that right now. But it was a political success because of the civil rights and voting rights and housing. And it's true that under Johnson, under LBJ, he began to really zero in on the issues of poverty until the Vietnam War took those resources away. So I would say it was quasi-success, but as Malcolm reminds us, you don't stab folk 9 inches in the back and pull it out 6 and celebrate your progress and success. The poverty's still there, you see. The lack of access to access to health care, access to houses of decency, access to quality education, access to especially deep dignity and respect. I mean, what Martin King in some ways always was calling for was a revolution in the form of the sharing of power, the sharing of resources, the sharing of dignity, the sharing of respect. And you can't have that without a fundamental transformation that's tied to Wall Street.
But he also called for, as you know, and I've heard you lecture about this many times, a revolution of values.
Yes, he did.
Which we still have not gotten around to.
I know. In some ways, you know, it's connected to a revolution of virtues, because virtues cut deeper than values. You know what I mean? Virtues are the habitual patterns of behavior that one cultivates over time and space, so that courage, magnanimity, all those are questions of characters, not just values. You know what I mean? So when you look at a Malcolm and Martin or Fannie Lou Hamer, Medgar Evers, or Theodore Roosevelt, Mason, Howard again here in Mississippi, they ran him out in '56. He ended up in Chicago. But when you think about the courage that they had, that's not just a value. That's a virtue, you see. And we got too many cowardly leaders. Now, I don't know what happened today or this weekend in Washington, D.C.
I want to talk about that.
But I can tell you one thing. Compared to what happened in 1963 and 2023 would be the difference between John Coltrane and Kenny G.
Wow. While you and I were moving around the state of Mississippi, I was getting messages from people, and these are just my friends, but people who were watching the march and the festivities in D.C. Saturday were texting me, and if I were to use a word, underwhelmed. It was underwhelming for a lot of people. And I don't mean to cast aspersion on anybody who was involved in organizing and who appeared at the march, but I kept hearing from a variety of people that it was, in many respects, underwhelming. I raised that to ask, first of all, you went there, so I'm following you, but I raised that to ask whether or not in this moment, in late modernity, given what this democracy is up against, whether or not in your mind marches and protests still matter. Do marches still matter? Do protests still matter?
They always matter. Okay. You see, we have to use every form of weaponry. You know, the 6th chapter of Ephesians says, put on the armor, the breastplate, the shield. You have to use every form of intellectual, spiritual, moral, and political weaponry. And marches are just one. But if you invest in marches with no follow-through, then you got a problem. If you have leaders of the march, and Sharpton and others, you know, I got deep love for Sharpton, and he and I have been fighting for the last 25, 30 years over a whole host of issues. And he's made his own distinctive contributions, but I've got some serious critiques of it, too. It's not personal.
Yes, sir.
We come out of the same tradition in the black church and so forth. And, of course, you know Brother Dwight McKee and others who me and Sharpton have a deep love for. But at the same time, because Sharpton has become so deeply embedded in the Democratic Party, and because he's been willing to deal with a whole host of variety of different lobbies who have very little focus on black poor and black working people, because often they're tied to, the corporate elites and Wall Street and so forth, then it's going to be difficult to sustain the John Coltrane-like Love Supreme of 1963 with the more market sensibility of 2023 in our leadership. And that's a devolution, that's a decline in terms of vision and courage and tremendous consistency that focuses on the least of these. What is always crucial about Mississippi is, and we had that wonderful talk with James Meredith today.
We're going to come to that.
You're going to come to that.
Hold that thought. Finish your thought now. We'll come back to Meredith.
No, but the thing about Mississippi is, and I love the mayor here too in Jackson too, Brother Lumumba.
Yes.
In Mississippi, if you ain't got nothing to say about the least of these, it's going to be hard to get some traction.
I know you have a lot more to say about the least of these. So there's more traction for us to get when this conversation continues. We'll talk about James Meredith. We did have a chance to sit with the iconic James Meredith earlier today.
And his wonderful wife.
Here in Mississippi. And we'll talk about fascism and why Cornel West is the only presidential candidate who's not afraid to talk about fascism. You're listening to Tavis Smiley.
This is getting good.
Yeah, man.
Tavis Smiley continues when we come forward.
What's up, party people? It's your favorite MC's favorite rapper, MC Light here. And we're celebrating 50 years of hip-hop, authentically powered by Cadillac. And we're going to take it way back to where it started. It was only fitting that hip-hop began with teenagers at a back-to-school jam in the rec room of a South Bronx apartment complex by an 18-year-old brother. By the way, I'm also sure he had a Cadillac parked outside. He noticed the energy on the dance floor when they switched between two turntables, extending the beats, repeating the breaks, and never losing the rhythms. And that was the birth of hip-hop. And from that moment, it took off.
For more on how Cadillac is celebrating hip-hop's 50th, visit Cadillac.com/audacity.
I'm Mike Moore. Here's the latest from the Black Information Network. The death toll after the wildfire in Lahaina remains at 115. 3 more victims' names were publicly released on Sunday. They include a 28-year-old father of 2. 43 victims have now been identified publicly. The death count has remained at 115 for nearly a week, but hundreds of people remain missing or unaccounted for. Just one of former President Donald Trump's 18 co-defendants in the Georgia election interference case is being jailed. African-American Harrison Floyd was denied bond Friday after being considered a flight risk. Floyd is charged with racketeering, conspiracy, and influencing a witness. He turned himself in Thursday before Trump, but did not have a lawyer reach a bond agreement before he surrendered. And that's the latest. I'm Mike Moore from your 24/7 news source, the Black Information Network, and BINnews.com.
In the Mid-City area, a stalled vehicle now on the 10 eastbound before La Brea Avenue, taking out the left lane with delays coming off La Cienega Boulevard. Willowbrook, we've got an accident with a vehicle fire, 105 east at Central Avenue. The fire has been put out, but everything blocking the right lane there. Downtown LA, working on a wreck 110 north at 3rd, 4th Street. That's in a middle lane with delays coming away from the 10.
Labor Day savings start now at Lowe's. Save on select 3-quart mums. Right now, just 2 for $12. Lowe's knows savings. Lowe's knows home improvement. Valid through 8:30 in-store only. Actual plant size and selection varies by location. Excludes Alaska and Hawaii.
This is the KBLA Sports Minute with Ray Richardson.
I'm a bad man.
Simone Biles looks like she's ready for the Paris Olympics in 2024 right now. The African-American gymnastics superstar won the U.S. Nationals all-around competition Sunday in San Jose. At age 26, Biles is the oldest woman to win the U.S. Nationals. The 4-time Olympic gold medalist is making a comeback after taking 3 years off since the Tokyo Olympics in 2021. The Dodgers capped a 4-2 road trip with a win at Boston Sunday. Congratulations to the Little Leaguers from El Segundo. They beat Curacao for the Little League World Series championship. Louis Lappy hit a walk-off homer in the bottom of the sixth to win it for El Segundo. First Little League title for a team from L.A. County since a team from Long Beach won it in 1993. No debates, no speculation, just the info you need. That's your KBLA Sports Minute. I'm Ray Richardson. More news, opinions, and conversation when we come forward on KBLA Talk 1580.
Extreme heat can make you very sick and can be deadly. For Californians 65 and over, it's important to have a plan. Ask your healthcare provider if your medications affect your ability to cool down. Know the signs of heat illness and stroke, as well as the location of your nearest cooling center or air-conditioned space. And if you have loved ones over 65, be sure to check in on them on hot days. Learn how to stay safer from extreme heat at heatreadyca.com. Brought to you by the state of California.
Are you looking for a tax preparation firm that understands the unique financial challenges of African American business owners? Then look no more. Wealth Management Financial Advisors can prepare and file your individual and business taxes. They're committed to providing their clients with the best possible service. See how they make the greatest impact on your taxes. Find them at wealthmanagementlb.com or call them at 562-427-8877. That's 562-427-8877.
More honesty than you can handle.
More empowerment than you can imagine.
You're tuned in to Tavis Smiley.
I'm Tavis Smiley, delighted to have you tuned into our program today as we celebrate the 60th anniversary of the March on Washington, April 28, 1963. Our guest is Green Party presidential candidate, Dr. Cornel West. He and I, as we sit for this conversation right now, are in Mississippi, and we have been there for a couple of days, moving around the state, specifically in the Delta, celebrating Emmett Till's anniversary weekend here in the great state of Mississippi. Earlier today, Doc, again, as we sit for this conversation right now, we literally, half hour, 45 minutes ago, just left the home of the iconic James Meredith. James Meredith, as you know, is the African-American brother who integrated Ole Miss. A huge story in the annals of African-American history. He heard that Dr. West and I were in town, and the invitation came to meet him at his home, come say hello to him. He just turned 90 in June. Mind is sharp as ever. What did you make of our conversation, our time with James Meredith today?
Yeah, it hit me hard, though, brother. It really did. He's 90 years old. He was. Remember what he said? He said that the most fundamental fact about his life was his skin color. Mm-hmm. You see, that's how deep the legacy of white supremacy.
How did that hit you? I know how it hit me when he said that. He's a 90-year-old man.
90 years old.
Iconic, again, integrates integrates Ole Miss, and he says, Brother West, Tavis, the defining moment of my life, really, has been my skin color. How did you read that?
Yeah, that just hit me hard, though, man. Because, I mean, all of the various dimensions of our humanity that goes far beyond race. And yet white supremacy still persists in such a thick manner. So when he goes back in 62 with the March Against Fear, and we talk so much in Mississippi about breaking the back of fear with love and courage and trying to keep black folks scared and intimidated and fearful and so forth. And that march of fear that he had. And then now, almost 50-some years later, 61 years later. What else he said? Things hadn't changed that much. You say, oh, Brother James, of course they have. You got that young renaissance in Mississippi with Jessamine Ward and David Banner and Sister Natasha. I mean, we can go on and on of these young Mississippi voices that are taking off, and yet at the same time, the Jenkins and Parker. And not just them, but the ugly police brutalizations.
The Goon Squad.
The Goon Squads, which are not just in Mississippi. They're in Atlanta, they're in Memphis, they're in Chicago, they're in New York, they're in L.A. as well. But it just hit me and thinking about, wow, we really have to fortify ourselves. You got that Fortification Street in Jackson.
We passed by it, Fortification Street.
Historic Jackson State University, of course. We passed, and we were talking about how do we fortify ourselves given what's been coming at us for so long, and we think we make a breakthrough, and then you get a backslide. You remember Nina Simone, Mississippi.
GD.
We can't say it, huh?
Yeah.
Lord have mercy.
We got it.
Everybody know what
they know what you're talking about.
Nina Simone was talking about, and she said this out of love for the black Mississippians. We should add, when we go to the white side of town, that William Faulkner, novelist, Mississippi. Tennessee Williams, playwright, Mississippi. Eudora Welty, short story, Mississippi. Other than the blues, which is the greatest achievement not just in Mississippi but America artistically in the 20th century, that Mississippi has had this kind of fundamental impact on art, on culture, on society, on politics, far more than its size. And it's an interesting wrestling with this. His young brother, Donald Brown, who is a Rhodes Scholar from Mississippi, he's at Brown now, that wrote a dissertation on what is distinctive about Mississippi in terms of its breakthroughs, in terms of its histories, in terms of its ways of wrestling with what it means to be human from the artistic and the political points of view. Of course, Richard Wright, Margaret Walker, there's just so many other examples that we have. Now, I know you coming from Mississippi, I don't want to push this too far because I was born in Tulsa, Oklahoma. We got something going on. Me and Uncle Charlie.
I ain't mad at you.
The Gap Band. We got something going on now, brother.
Greenwood, Archer, and Pine.
We got Jake. We got Jake. We got Jake from Sacramento. Jake King.
I love Jay. I ain't mad at you, Doc. I'm watching my time here. I want to talk about your campaign. I mean, one of the reasons, the primary reason that I am here is because you invited me to join you. We've done this a number of times over the course of our 30-plus year friendship and brotherhood. Traveled the world together.
Absolutely.
And so when you invited me, I came. But the reason you were here is because they wanted to hear from a presidential candidate in this critical moment about the future of this democracy, or as I call it, an experiment in democracy. And so they put the call out to Cornel West. You responded, and they have been delighted, of course, over this weekend to see you at all these different stops. Let me just ask you right quick. Why you are so free calling it the way you see it, that is to say, fascism, the word you used earlier. Joe Biden used that word one time. As you recall, they slapped him upside the head, and he ain't said it again. But he was honest in that moment. But one of the things I see people loving about you, and I love about you, people respond to about you, is that you are a truth teller. And you use that F word, you mean it, and you use it consistently, but there are not a lot of folk on the campaign trail who are courageous enough to call it the way they see it.
Well, one is that, see, I am as deeply concerned about the precious son of Mary Jenkins, Brother Michael, as I am the child of Biden. If Biden had cousins and loved ones who were being brutalized chronically, who were living in poverty of longevity, who were being overly policed, who were living in indecent housing and didn't have access to Medicare, my hunch is he'd have a different sensibility. Now, I'd be concerned about his kids just like I'm concerned about my dear sister Jenkins' kids or Parker's or whatever, you see. And so for me, we have to be very honest about keeping track of the forces coming at us. Fascism is the rule of big military and big money, Wall Street, Silicon Valley, and others, right, with a 1% that has an indifference toward the plight of the rest of the population, but especially the poor and working portions of that population. And they scapegoat the most vulnerable in terms of immigrants on the border, or in terms of gay brothers and lesbian sisters, or women out of control, and especially black folk, and believe that they could talk about indigenous peoples as if they're less than human when it's their land that we are on. Right? And in addition, use military adventurism abroad. See, that's all those coming together constitute distinctive forms of fascism. And so we have to be honest in our language to show just how ugly and just how immoral and unjust fascist rule, fascist practices actually are.
There is a powerful piece. I want to just tee this up. We'll get Dr. West's response to this when we come forward, so I only have a minute to set this up. But there is a piece that I discovered on my way to Mississippi to meet you. When I landed and saw you late night for dinner, I asked you, had you seen the piece? You had not. Your precious wife, Anahita, had not seen it. And so I pulled my phone out, as you recall, to share it with you. It is the best piece I've seen written so far. I'm your friend. I'm your brother. My cards are on the table. I've already said Cornel West gets my primary vote. End of story. Hard stop. Full stop. So I'm already on the record about that. But it's the best piece I've seen written about your campaign, and it's the best about your candidacy. And it's the best piece I've seen written so far because Brother Sekou, who wrote the piece, did not shy away from the critiques that are being leveled against you.
Absolutely.
And he characterized these critiques in 3 categories. And I want to get your response on the record to these 3 things that he writes about regarding the critique of your campaign. 1, you recall these 3?
Oh, absolutely.
The first was?
The first one was ego.
The second
one was vanity.
And the third one
was?
And
the third one was selfishness.
And that's what we're going to talk about when we come forward. Cornel West's ego, his vanity, and his selfishness. You're listening to Tavis Smiley.
More of Tavis Smiley when we come forward.
What is dedication?
My biggest fear in the middle of my addiction was that my kids wouldn't have a father. And I started thinking, you know what? This isn't my story. I definitely had to become a better man to be a better father. It's important to me that my kids are empowered and truly believe that if they can think it, they can do it.
That's dedication. Visit fatherhood.gov to hear more. Brought to you by the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services and the Ad Council.
Joey from Vermont, a farmer trying to get through the winter. Adriana from South Carolina, a single mother living paycheck to paycheck. Liam from Ohio, an injured father struggling to provide for his family. Hi, I'm Shanola Hampton, and I support the Feeding America network of food banks because they help provide over 6 billion meals to people in need each year. Learn more at feedingamerica.org.
When you're young, life is full of choices. Don't let opioids like highly addictive and deadly fentanyl take away your life with just one wrong pill. Addiction is a disease that can affect anyone at any age. But there is a choice to get help for this disease. Find medically proven treatment options, including virtual, at choosemat.org.
You're listening to K-Drip, where we play all the best classic water-wasting hits like Sprinklers in the Rain and Leaky Faucets. They're tunes from another time because now that we face a hotter, drier future, every drop counts. Despite an extremely wet winter, keep using less water, fixing leaks, and reusing indoor water for your garden. Visit SaveOurWater.com for more ways to conserve. Up next, brushing your teeth with the water on.
K-Drip. KBLA Talk 1580.
We've got a lot to talk about.
Maisha Cairo here for KBLA Talk 1580. We're live in Los Angeles at JP Morgan Chase's Advancing Black Wealth Tour. And I'm speaking to some of the attendees today to see why it was so important for them to be here.
Yeah, this is Lathan and Tyler. Main reason that's very important for me to be here is just to leave a legacy for my kids. Black wealth, generational wealth is what we need in our community, you know. Oh, Chase, someone has to take the lead. They're showing, big business like Chase cares, and they're putting their money where their mouth is at. So it's good to see, big institution like Chase, giving a lifting hand, to the community, and you got to respect that. It makes me want to bank with Chase, and give them another look. If I go to another institution, I actually see what Chase is doing for the community.
That's right, Chase is doing their part to help advance Black wealth. For more money support, tune in every day from 12 to 2 to KBLA Talk 1580's Midday Money Chain, right here.
Helping to make you the most knowledgeable person in your circle of friends. This is Tavis Smiley.
I'm Tavis Smiley. We are here with Dr. Cornel West. We're in Mississippi for the recording of this conversation as we celebrate today the 60th anniversary of the March on Washington. Dr. West, as you well know, is the Green Party candidate for president, and as such, a lot of darts being tossed his way How's your back feeling? You feel them darts in your back?
Brother, I'm feeling stronger than ever. Stronger than ever.
Let me run through these three things. If you have not seen this piece written by Brother Sekou, it's on News One. Just go to the News One website, go to the News One platform, just type in Cornel West, Sekou, that's Sekou. Just Sekou is the author. Type in Cornel West, name of Sekou, you'll find it. It's on, again, the News One platform. The best piece I have seen written so far about Cornel West and why he's running and what he, in fact, can accomplish with this campaign. One of the coldest lines in the piece is that he, basically quoting you, says that your running, deciding to run, is an act of desperation. Can you, in 30 seconds, what do you mean? What does he mean when he calls your campaign an act of desperation?
Yeah, but you know, Brother Sekou, that brother, he hits the nail on the head of what not just my campaign. My campaign is a moment in a larger movement that's domestic and global for oppressed peoples. And he understands that this is about bearing witness and allowing the great Black freedom movement and the great people's freedom movements to spill over into electoral politics, so it exposes the mediocrities and all of the criminalities that are downplayed by politics as it's usually done. Mm-hmm. And Brother Sekou, you know, he and I go back a long way. I'm telling you, he's a brilliant brother. He's one of the most important intellectuals and activists of his generation from Delta, going up to Arkansas. That's right. Where he comes from. He's also a magnificent singer and artist. But I think more important, he recognizes that so many of the charges of ego and vanity and selfishness are just rationalizations of people being well adjusted to the status quo that's unjust. Does Brother West have an ego? Hell yes. Does the ego get in the way of service for poor and working people? Look at my record. Does Brother West wrestle with vanity? Of course, I'm a cracked vessel. Does Brother West allow that vanity to foreclose any generosity? Take a look at my praxis. The proof is in the pudding. Is Brother West driven by a selfishness? Everybody got a selfishness. My own Bible tells me, love thy neighbor as thyself. Mm-hmm. We need more black self-love, black self-respect, black self-esteem. But that doesn't mean you don't love others. Mm-hmm. So many of these formulations are really just rationalizations of the two-party system, rationalizations of the corporate duopoly, and in many instances among leaders and some intellectuals more and more, it doesn't allow them to critically examine themselves and their own forms of complicity to the leaders that they are tied to.
So it's about ego, but it's their ego.
Well, all of that is not, but all of us, vanity, you. All of us, selfishness, all of us, but it's always more than that.
Yeah. One of the best lines in that piece that Sekou writes, and I encourage you to read it. It's again at News One. Check it out for yourself. One of the great lines in that piece is the distinction that he makes about your campaign, your candidacy being more about witness than winning. Nothing wrong with winning. Cornel West would love to win. Anybody that runs wants to win.
Absolutely.
You ain't running not to win.
That's right.
There's a distinct difference between winning and witnessing, and Cornel West campaign is primarily about witnessing. Remaining moments with Dr. Cornel West, Green Party presidential candidate, when we come forward on Tavis Smiley.
You're listening to Tavis Smiley. Tavis Smiley. Ranked number 45 on the Heavy 100 list of the 100 most important radio talk show hosts in America.
Escalade IQ. This the intro to the all-electric Cadillac, perfected like Zoom. And on a full charge, you get 450 miles without the stop. Haiku. This is what I do. Daddy fat intellect since 92. Linked all the way back, panoramic roof. Come with 24-inch rim standard. Ooh, why? Shawty don't kill him. Cadillac diamond in the back, cold chillin'. And when I'm on attack, on the track is no ceiling. Sky's the limit. You hear me? You hear me? Straight drop, no parachutes. Lay lines like a longitude and latitude. Feel it, beloved, clearly, we're hustling. Bustin', truckin'. Cadillac.
For more on the Escalade IQ, visit Cadillac.com.
Available late 2024. GM estimate 450-mile range on a full charge based on development testing and/or analytical projection consistent with SCHA 1634 revision 2017 MCT. Range subject to change prior to production. Annual rates may vary based on service factors, including ambience temperature, terrain, battery age, and condition loading, and how you use and maintain your vehicle.
KBLA Talk 1580. We've got a lot to talk about.
The rent is too damn high. KBLA joins you in calling for affordable housing. The LA Tenants Union is a diverse, tenant-led movement fighting for the human right to housing for all. The LA Tenants Union demands safe, affordable housing and union rent control. They organize against landlord harassment, mass evictions, and displacement, and mobilize for the repeal of the Ellis Act and Costa-Hawkins Act. The LA Tenants Union is on a mission to strengthen tenants' political power through education, advocacy, and direct action. To get help with your eviction or other landlord-tenant issues, take action for justice, or become a member, visit latenantsunion.org. This is a community call to action from KBLA Talk 1580.
Made fresh daily in the Mert Park, Los Angeles, California. You're listening to Tavis Smiley.
About 4 minutes left here in conversation with the Green Party presidential candidate, Dr. Cornel West, who I've spent the last couple of days with running around the Delta in Mississippi. First of all, it's always an honor to be in your presence, brother.
Brother, did we have a good time?
Brother, we had an amazing time, brother. I love listening to your talks in all these different spaces, and love seeing the love of the people for you and your love for them. I've said to many people that one of the reasons why you are my friend and brother and I support you is I've rarely met anybody in a public space, much less a political space, who is so unapologetic about their love for black folk. It's a rare thing, man.
Well, the thing is that I think it's actually more pervasive, but it's invisible because so many folk are obsessed with superficial things. That black love, like love in general, it's operating on the ground, but you can't make money on it. You can't turn it into a superficial spectacle. You go to some of the funerals and you see people's love overflowing with the tears and unbelievable heartbreak. That's the real thing. Yeah. We saw it today with my dear brother Malik Shabazz. You know, whatever disagreements you have with that brother, he gave a love testimony because he wants to break the back of the vicious forms of police brutality and violence coming at black folk. And when you do that in Rankin County, you can get killed. Yeah. And his mama is concerned, and we concerned. And that's similar to what 1963 was about. Almost everybody on that stage, from Martin across the board, been killed any minute because they had a love that allowed them to break the back of fear and to witness to the magnificent nobility and dignity of black people, especially black poor and working people. And I told my dear brother, and I tell my blessed wife, I put on my cemetery clothes every day. I'm coffin ready. And if all they can do is kill me, then that means, in fact, there's thousands and thousands to come after that will understand cracked vessels like myself trying to use as examples the love supreme and the caravan of love of the Isley Brothers and the love train of the OJs. Those are not just songs. Because when you love black people, you got to get ready to die.
In the 90 seconds I have left here, how is the campaign going? Are you going to qualify as a Green Party candidate on state ballots? That's the trick. You got to get on these state ballots.
Oh, we already got 19. Okay. No, Brother Rick is on the way. We're going to have 13 by December.
Okay. 13 more by December.
By more, so that'll be 32 right there. We're on the way to like 46 or 47. Absolutely. Now, I've still got to win the Green Party nomination.
Sure, of course.
There's no doubt about
that. For me, that's.
I don't want to take that for granted.
I got you.
I don't take that for granted at all. But most importantly, I'm going to be true to what Irene and Clifton West and Shiloh Baptist Church and the Black Panther Party put in my soul, which is to speak my truth, to bear witness to a justice, to have a sense of humor, try to preserve my style, and always smile.
You can't do much better than that on the 60th anniversary of the March on Washington to sit for an hour in dialogue with the candidate for the Green Party presidential nomination, Dr. Cornel West, who has been on this program before, and I'm sure will come on again as he continues to move through this campaign. But I didn't want this day of celebration to end without having his voice as a part of this program. Dr. West, I love you. There ain't nothing you can do about it.
Love you, my brother. And Well, we had a good time in Mississippi. I'm telling you.
Love you, Doc. More of Tavis Smiley when we come forward. Stay with us.
KBLA 1580 Santa Monica.
I'm Mike Moore. Here's the latest from the Black Information Network. The death toll after the wildfire in Lahaina remains at 115. 3 more victims' names were publicly released on Sunday. They include a 28-year-old father of 2. 43 victims have now been identified.